My name's Jessica Garay, and I currently am calling Portland, Oregon, my home, Stumptown. I was in college. Yoga found me. I think it started very similar to the average person. I was in college, and I went to, this part that's maybe not so average, went to go visit my parents in their nudist colony that they lived in down in Florida. And where every college girl dreams to spend her vacation time, surrounded by elderly people naked. But it was home to me. Anyways, so I went there hanging out because it's warm. And my mom was like, there's like this little mini gym that you could go to. Oh man, if you want a good time, go to a nudist colony little gym. The men are all like, oops, I forgot my pants. And the women are all like, just like all naked. So anyway, so we go into this little mini gym and they have their yoga class. And as you may find out, they had some dance classes prior to this. So I felt like, yeah, and I'm like 19 or something. Pretty athletic. I go in and everyone's like, I am the youngest person by like 40 plus years. And we start to do yoga, and half of the class is naked, and half of the class is not. And I remember being behind an elderly gentleman, and he was full on birthday suit. All of it. He was not just, oops, I forgot my pants. He was, I'm doing this in the bear. And he was right in front of me. And I have no memory of yoga mats or anything, but I do remember his prosarita. Oh. So that's how my first yoga class. And then I did what most 19-year-olds do and dated yoga for a little bit, and then simultaneously got drunk when I wasn't dating her. So it was just like dating beer and then dating yoga and then switching back and forth until I was about 25, and I decided to start traveling. And I had met a boy, and he was like really yogi, and I then sort of the competitive person within me was like, I'm totally yogi too. I've been to yoga classes, doing my sun salutations and stuff. And so when I traveled around, I got into my yoga practice almost as like to spite him, which is so funny. But I discovered that it made my traveling experience really nice. And I only knew Surya Namaskar A. It was the only yoga I had memorized. And I even then was like teaching it to people like, oh, you should totally do this move. It's like called a downward dog or something. And then I traveled a whole bunch, like sold all my stuff, moved to Guatemala, did a bunch of other things. And then I eventually moved out to Portland and had a hard time living in Portland. And when I first moved there, it was a moment in my life where kind of all of it, I describe it as a snow globe experience where like when the feelings within myself that were challenging would bubble up, and I would have to look at them and deal with them. I would snow globe my life so that I wouldn't have to do that. And when the last snow globe attempt was just like, I'm gonna move somewhere. Where am I? I'm gonna move to Portland. And then it didn't work. And then I like got a job, and then I snow globed and quit the job. And then I got something else. And then I got married, and then I snow globed that. And none of it really worked. And I just kept feeling like shit. And I got really into my yoga practice. It was the first time that it was my savior. I did it every day, twice a day, fully dedicated, and it was a lifeline back to center. And anytime I wasn't doing it, I was looking forward to the next time that I could. And from there, with a lot of yoga and therapy, and the best therapist ever, I remember specifically this moment. I had spent a lot of time, I think most of my life, out of my body. And I think that this is more of a common experience than we realize. And I remember specifically this moment after I had taken my first teacher training, and there was a dance party, and I like to dance, and I was dancing to the music, and it hit me that I was, for the first time, in my body, and I could feel the floor, and I could feel the air, and I could feel the music, and I knew that, like, this was what it was all about. Like, all of the hard work, all of, like, any way that your asana practice, your posture practice is showing up, all of it is just to bring you back home to the body. And when you're there, it opens it up. It opens up an experience for you to actually be in your life. And then all the things that you need to deal with, they like bubble up, and you do the hard work of living. And from that point onward, yoga has been a part of my life every single day. Most now, like all day, in some way or another. So I think I use humor in my teaching because, in particular in the way that yoga shows up for the average experience of a student. You're coming to an asana class after work and you want to move your body. And I just don't think it needs to be that serious. I don't think in those moments, like, that what is most useful is for me to make you feel like you need to overanalyze anything. And I want you to just lighten up, because it's like we're just like moving our bodies around. There's nothing else to it. And to like deliver the message that like there's no, like you cannot do this wrong. Like, lighten up. Put your foot there. I don't fucking care. Don't put your foot there, you know? And so I think when there's like this element of humor, of lightness to it, it gives everybody permission to just be themselves. Because ultimately, what I want people to feel is to have the same experience that I have with yoga, which is it gives me permission to be me. It allows me to have access to me. And I want to give that same permission to other people. So, you know, and I'm like, funny, so why not? I don't know, that's it. It's a tool that's best used to create an atmosphere of, like, to break down a little bit of the glass between student and teacher, that there's a lightness in the atmosphere, but if that's all that it is, it then becomes a performance. And I think with my own personal experience and life circumstances, I have used humor to find lightness as a way, at first just to be able to express certain things that were really hard without having it be so hard. And then ultimately, though, I've learned that it's also a way of protecting myself from really feeling those things. And so when you use it as like, let's be friendly with each other, let's have a little bit more of a lighthearted experience, then it's serving the teachings and serving what I'm wanting to offer. But when it becomes the only thing that I'm offering, right? If I don't then move past it and remind myself what this is really all about, then it becomes a disservice to me as a teacher, to me as a practitioner, and to to my students. And so it's just one way of creating a little bit of lightheartedness. But I definitely know that ultimately what I'm really wanting people to have is sort of like crack that little bit of that shell so that then we can like go in super deep. So that then we can look at the things that really are hard, that I don't want to look at about myself, and you probably don't want to look at with you. And but we need to. It's kind of back to that like level one stuff. If I can't be at home in this body and I can't look at my life experiences and be, not that I have to be in love with my life experiences, but hold love for all of them, that love still, like that I'm okay even though I've had any experience that I've had. That's what the real work's about. And so it can't get lost in a performance. And it's easy to do, in particular when you're a teacher that likes humor and likes to do really more challenging movement-based yoga practices. And I have to make sure that I continually remind myself that it isn't about me or anything that I'm doing, that I'm allowing the teachings to do the work to strip people down so that we can get into something that really means something. When you are really in alignment with self-love, I don't think it is necessarily one prescribed feeling, like, oh, it feels warm or fuzzy or anything. It's an experience of, the best way that I can describe it, of coming home. Whereas when we are not really taking care of ourselves, we are moving outward from the body and we're out. And when we are taking care of ourselves, when we are experiencing care of ourselves, it's a coming home. And I think sometimes this looks like something really lovely, like a hot bath, or knowing that you need to get a good night's sleep, right? Or take yourself out for dinner. And other times, self-care doesn't actually feel good at all. But it's a coming home to the truth of who you are, embracing all aspects of yourself, even the ones that are difficult to do. An example of that is I used to use sort of the my teenage years from like 12 to 25, and I still do. And I would make fun of myself of like, oh, I would do this. Tip over Jessie was my college nickname. And I would laugh about that because it's kind of funny. And I have lots of scars, both literally physical ones and emotional ones from there. And the truth of caring for myself, though, when I make it into a joke and I make it into something lighthearted, I can gloss over it. And that's not actual self-care. That's it's the opposite of coming home. What coming home actually looks like is I was a scared, damaged little girl. And I didn't know how to take care of myself. And so I did it in ways that weren't healthy. And I didn't know any better. And so self-love looks like looking at that girl, and instead of shaming her and telling her that, oh, God, why'd you always get drunk? Or why'd you always behave that way? Oh, that's so silly. It's loving her anyways. It's saying, you didn't know any better. These were the tools that you were given, and you did the best that you could. And I love you. I love you wholly and fully. And that work, that doesn't feel good necessarily. It's hard and it hurts to hold her, but it feels like home. And that's the definition of self-care. That's the definition of self-love. So having my daughter, it has given me new inspiration to do this work and do it right. Because if I can't, even if sometimes I can't muster up the strength to do this for myself, I can do it for her. I want to be the model so that she grows up knowing what it looks like to love herself. And that is the greatest gift I could ever give her. And so on the days when it's not as easy, I remember that this is something I am promising to give her as best as I can. And on the days where I feel more connected, I allow it to be this joyous celebration of who I am, to show her that who she is lovely and beautiful and amazing. Because if I can embody that and sing in the car and dance to music like a dork and be fully myself in all the ways that I am, then I am giving her permission to do that. And I think there isn't anything greater that you could give your child. So she's an inspiration for that, for sure. Yoga is coming home. It's coming home first to your body. It's coming home to your whole life, to taking it in one full embrace and learning to know that you're enough. And then it's coming home to your relationship with other people. It's learning to look at that part within yourself that is love and see that within other people. And then ultimately, it's the work of coming home to our spirit, to using those tools of relationships with ourselves, relationships with other people, so that we have an opportunity to experience glimpses of what that relationship looks like with spirit. And in the micro moments in my practice where I have felt engagement and connection to spirit, there is nothing more at home than that. And all of it is a practice to get there. I mean, some of the teachers that have had the most impact on me, I don't get to see very often anymore, but Sri Dharma Mittra has been a strong influence in my life, and oddly enough, in some ways, gave me permission on his own subtle level to be myself, to practice like me. And I know that it sort of sounds cheesy, but it's my students and my family. I say this like my gurus, Jackomo and Luna, my partner and my daughter, and my community and my students. They're all continual inspirations to me so that I keep trying and working and striving to stay on the path, because sometimes it's a whole hell of a lot easier to take a day off. And I think when you choose, or when the life chooses you, when you choose to be a yogi and sign up for evolution right? There's responsibility there, and my community and my family helps me to stay attuned to that. So one thing I would say, and this is what's working for me right now, is that there is a lot of, that you don't want to use the spiritual bypass. That the work of being a human being in relationship to yourself, and being a human being in relationship to others, are interlaced and intertangled with the relationship with divine and our spiritual practice, but they are equal and valuable practices. And we have to partake in all of them. You cannot bypass and just go to spirituality. You need to work on yourself, have relationships with others, and create intimacy there, engagement there. And all of that will feed into a richer and more fuller spiritual practice. And I think sometimes, as within the culture of yoga, we put this solve on of spirituality, of like, oh Namah Shivaya, everything's fine. You know, and I sign up for it. Yes, abundance, full heart. But I would always wonder that when I wasn't feeling fully connected there, why it still was so hard. And it was because I was using this bypass. And I wasn't doing the other work that needed to accompany it. And I have found that when I'm doing all of it, all three aspects of that, everything is fuller. Everything means more. And I'm closer to that experience of home. So do your work, all of it, with yourself, with your community, and with God.